Good evening, Douglas Boyd. Further in my discussion the other night about the structures of arguments, I was looking particularly at the straw man fallacy. That is to say, a structure of argument that really is false and misleading, often not intentionally, but it is a very commonly used tactic in arguments, and often I think sums up a misunderstanding people, or a conclusion that people will jump to, and that is to say, the proponent of an argument puts forward their point and the opponent takes the wrong line, often unintentionally. For example, parent says to the teenager, you can't go to a party, and the teenager goes mad and says, you don't want me to have fun. That is probably the conclusion the teenager has jumped to, but it is actually not what the parent is saying. The parent is saying various reasons for you not to go to this party. Actually, the parent is not saying that. The parent is meaning that. The parent has that in the back of their mind. The teenager jumps to a conclusion that really is not related to what the parent has actually said, and almost certainly not true. And that would be accidentally jumping to a false conclusion and trying to argue about a fallacy, and that is a straw man fallacy. The teenager, the opponent, has actually taken something out of context or taken it too far, taken a meaning that isn't there, and wishes to argue about that rather than the actual point, which is about a party, not about having fun. A different tack is where somebody does that on purpose. And a good example was shown to me recently, back in, I think, the 2019 Australian federal election. The opposition at the time was strongly promoting using electric vehicles. Now, Australia is a huge country, huge continent, and the distances to be travelled are very great, and there's not a lot of infrastructure in the middle of Australia. So the government refuted the opposition's argument by saying the opposition wants to put an end to weekends. It's really ridiculous. But their point was, if you can't go for a long drive on the weekend, which is pretty common in Australia, the Labor Party, the opposition party, was intending to stop you having long drives because electric vehicles don't go as far as petrol-driven vehicles. And in Australia, you need long range for vehicles. Therefore, the opposition party wanted to stop having a good time on the weekend. It is ridiculous. It's also intentional, completely deceptive and misleading. And in fact, the opposition had to spend time arguing about the issue of having a good time on weekends instead of saying the advantages of electric vehicles. And further in their argument, or in their policies, was rolling out additional charging stations and infrastructure such that their idea of electric vehicles would work. There's plenty of room to argue about those legitimate points and possibly say the opposition's policies was never going to work, and there are alternatives like hydrogen vehicles. But the government chose to use a straw man fallacy by saying the opposition wanted to stop people having a good time on the weekend. It's completely fallacious. It's misleading. It was pointless and stupid, and possibly helped them lose the election. There you go. Straw man argument. Let's avoid it.